There's a powerful shift that happens when you take your eyes off the size of your storm and fix them on the one who commands the wind and the waves. Life has a way of throwing us into situations that seem overwhelming, impossible even. You may be facing something right now that feels like a mountain standing in your way. Financial hardship, a relationship that's falling apart, dreams that feel delayed. But I gotta remind you today, the size of your problem doesn't change the power of your God. And when you stop magnifying the problem and start magnifying the promise, everything begins to change. What you focus on grows. If you focus on lack, you'll start to feel like you never have enough. If you focus on fear, you'll start to live your life anxious and uncertain. If you focus on what's not working, you'll miss all that is working. But when you shift your focus, when you say, I may not see the way, but I know the one who is the way, suddenly your perspective changes. Peace begins to rise up. Hope takes root again. Faith starts to breathe. There's something powerful about saying yes to God before you have all the answers. Something happens in the spiritual realm when you decide to move forward in obedience, even when the path isn't clear. It may not the full blueprint. The finances may not be there. The people around you may not understand. But when you give God your yes, you unlock doors you didn't even know existed. So many of us are waiting on God to move, but what if heaven is waiting on us? Waiting on our surrender, waiting on our obedience, waiting on a simple yes. Sometimes we think our yes has to be dramatic, that it has to come with trumpets and emotion and spiritual fireworks. But often the most life-changing yes is quiet. It's whispered in the middle of your discomfort. It's breathed out in the silence of your prayer closet. It's whispered through tears when you're not sure what happens next. It's that moment when your spirit says, God, I don't understand it, but I trust you anyway. That kind of yes carries weight in the kingdom. That kind of yes moves mountains you can't see. This land of filling you with divine appointments that have been waiting for your obedience. God is not asking you to have it all figured out. He's just asking you to follow. He's not looking for perfect people. He's looking for willing hearts, willing to trust, willing to surrender, willing to step out even if you're unsure. Sometimes the only thing standing between you and breakthrough is your hesitation. You keep waiting for a sign, but God already gave you a word. You keep waiting for confirmation, but God is waiting for commitment. Your yes is the activation key. It unlocks the next season. It opens the door to favor. It releases the flow of provision. There are things God won't show you until you step into them. That's why your obedience matters. You don't get all the details on this journey. You get direction, but you don't always get explanation. Faith doesn't mean you know where you're going. It means you trust the one who's leading you. So many people miss their moment because they're analyzing what they're supposed to be obeying. You can't reason your way into God's will. You walk into it by faith. Your yes is louder than your qualifications. It's louder than your past. It's louder than the opinions of people who think they know what you should be doing. When God calls you, He doesn't need the crowd's permission. He just needs your agreement. He doesn't call the equipped. He equips the called. But He can't equip someone who won't move. He can't pour into someone who's staying still. There's a grace that comes when you say yes. A strength you didn't know you had, a peace that doesn't make sense. But it all starts with surrender. Don't underestimate what your yes can set in motion. That small decision to obey can shift your family line. That one act of courage can birth a generational blessing. God is not looking for flashy, He's looking for faithful. He's looking for someone who will say, God, whatever you want to do in my life, I'm available. And when he finds that heart, when he finds that willingness, he will pour out favor that you didn't even pray for. He'll open doors you didn't even knock on. He'll send provision that you didn't know you needed. Your yes may not be easy, but it will always be worth it. It might stretch you. It might require sacrifice, but it will never lead to regret. The enemy wants you to believe that surrender is weakness, that obedience will cost you too much. But the truth is, disobedience costs far more. Every time you delay your yes, you delay your destiny. Every time you shrink back, you stall the flow. You were created for more than survival. You were created for kingdom impact. But impact requires action. It requires movement. It requires your yes. And let's be honest, saying yes is only the first step. Because as soon as you say yes, you step into a fight. You step into opposition. You step into spiritual warfare. The enemy's not going to sit back and applaud your obedience. He's going to try to intimidate you out of it. That's why you have to be armed. This is not a playground, it's a battleground. You are in a spiritual war, and whether you acknowledge it or not. And if you don't put on the armor, you're walking into battle unprotected. And the sword of the Spirit. This isn't a fashion statement. It's your survival gear. The reason some people feel spiritually exhausted isn't because they're weak. It's because they're unequipped. You can't keep walking through fire with no protection. You can't keep trying to do kingdom work in your own strength. You need divine covering. You need supernatural power. You need weapons that are not of this world, because the attacks you're facing are not just natural, they're spiritual. That anxiety, that confusion, that sudden heaviness, that's not random, that's warfare. And you need to fight it with the right tools. But here's the good news. God has already given you everything you need. You don't have to beg for the armor, it's already yours. But you do have to put it on. You have to wake up every day and choose truth, choose righteousness, choose peace, choose faith, choose salvation, choose the word. This isn't just for pastors and preachers. This is for every believer, every mother, every father, every student, every entrepreneur, every teacher. If you're walking with God, you're in the battle. And if you're in the battle, you need the armor. There's too much at stake for you to be casual. Too much purpose on your life for you to walk around unarmed. God didn't call you to barely make it. He called you to walk in victory. But victory doesn't come from passivity. It comes from preparation. It comes from discipline. It comes from knowing who you are and whose you are. When you know you're covered, you stop living afraid. You stop shrinking. You stop second guessing your assignment. You stand firm, not because life is easy, but because God is with you. And here's something to remember. Your yes and your armor work together. Your obedience positions you for purpose, but your armor protects you in the process. You can't have one without the other. Some people say yes to God, but forget to guard their minds. They get excited about the call, but forget to cover their hearts. That's how the enemy sneaks in, through unguarded places, through open wounds. You have to be intentional. You have to stay alert. The opposition isn't proof that you're off course, it's confirmation that you're on assignment. So stay the course. Stay armored. Stay faithful. Don't let what's coming against you make you question what God has spoken over you. Stand in faith. And when the battle gets intense, don't retreat. Worship. Don't panic, pray. Don't complain, declare the word. Your yes is not just about you, it's about everyone connected to your obedience. There are lives waiting on the other side of your surrender. There are breakthroughs that will never happen until you step into what God has called you to do. That's why the enemy fights you so hard. That's why distraction is so strong. Because your obedience has power. Your U.S. carries weight. Your decision to stand even when it's hard is a threat to darkness. Don't let fear silence your faith. Don't let resistance stop your run. Don't let delay weaken your declaration. Say yes and mean it. Say yes and get ready. Say yes and armor up. Because heaven is not waiting on your perfection. It's waiting on your participation. It's waiting on your agreement. It's waiting on your commitment to say, God, and even if I don't understand, I'm all in. Even if it costs me something, I'm all in. Even if the road gets rough. Just because it's taking longer than you thought doesn't mean God has forgotten about you. Just because the door hasn't opened yet doesn't mean He changed His mind. You may feel like you're stuck in a holding pattern, circling the same promises, watching others take off while you wait. But delay is not denial, it's development. It's refinement, it's preparation. God is not punishing you by making you wait. He's positioning you. He's growing you into the kind of person who can carry what you've been praying for. The delay doesn't mean He's not listening. It means He's still working. He's getting everything in place, lining up every detail, and making sure that when the door opens, you're not just ready to walk through it. You're ready to stay in the blessing. He's prepared for you. It's easy to think something's wrong when it's taking time. We live in a culture that celebrates speed, that rushes results, that idolizes instant gratification. But God doesn't operate on a microwave timeline. He takes His time because He cares more about the depth of your character than the speed of your journey. Some of the greatest victories in life are not in the arrival, but in the waiting. That waiting builds trust. It builds endurance. It teaches you to rely on Him in ways you never would have if everything had come easy. In the waiting, you learn to hear His voice more clearly. In the waiting, your roots go deeper. In the waiting, your faith is no longer based on feelings. It's anchored in truth. If you got everything the moment you asked for it, you wouldn't appreciate it the way you will when you've had to trust Him for it. A process, weight of calling, the weight of responsibility. You might be ready for the opportunity, but are you ready for the opposition that comes with it? You might be ready for the platform, but are you rooted enough to withstand the pressure? If He's making you wait, it's not to harm you, it's to protect you. He sees what you can't see. He knows what's around the corner. He's not just writing a story, He's building a foundation. And the higher the building, the deeper the foundation must be. If you try to rise without depth, you'll collapse under the pressure. But if you'll allow the delay to deepen your faith, when God elevates you, you won't just go high, you'll stay strong. That's why you shouldn't despise the season you're in. You may not see the fruit yet, but the roots are growing. You may feel hidden, but you're being hailed. Hidden doesn't mean forgotten, it means protected. When the timing is right, what God started in you will come to pass. Not a moment too late, not a second too early, right on time. And while you wait, don't lose sight of who you are. That delay doesn't change your value. That setback doesn't define your identity. Just because it hasn't happened yet doesn't mean you're any less chosen, any less called, any less anointed. Your worth was settled long before you had a title, before you had a platform, before you had a position. Your identity isn't based on your circumstances, it's based on your Creator. You are not what happened to you. You are not your delay. You are not your struggle. You are who God says you are. And He You are loved, redeemed, equipped, and chosen for such a time as this. Stop letting temporary situations make you question your eternal identity. You may be in the fire, but that doesn't make you damaged. You may be in a valley, but that doesn't mean you're lost. You may be under attack, but that doesn't mean you're unprotected. The enemy will try to use the waiting season to wear you down, to whisper lies, to make you question your worth. But you weren't validated by man, so you can't be disqualified by man. You weren't defined by your past, so you can't be discredited by your mistakes. Your identity was secured at the cross. When Jesus said, "It is finished," he wasn't just talking about sin. He was talking about shame. He was talking about guilt. He was talking about insecurity. You don't have to earn your identity. It's already been established. Once you know who you are, everything changes. You stop performing for approval. You stop shrinking to fit someone else's expectations. You stop negotiating your value to be accepted in rooms you were never called to sit in. You start walking in authority. You start praying with boldness. You start believing that if God is for you, nothing and no one can stand against you. Knowing who you are doesn't mean you'll never feel discouraged, but it means discouragement doesn't get the final word. It means even in the delay, you don't panic. Even in the silence, you don't doubt. Because you know you're not forgotten. You're favored. The problem is many of us are trying to earn what's already ours, trying to prove ourselves, trying to perform our way into significance. But identity isn't something you strive for, it's something you receive. The moment you realize you're already loved, already chosen, already seen, you stop chasing what you already possess. You stop exhausting yourself trying to be enough. You stop measuring your worth by what you do and start resting in who you are. And who you are is deeply loved, intentionally created, fearfully and wonderfully made. You weren't created to blend in. You were created to stand out. And when you stand in who you are, delays don't shake you. Doors that don't open don't define you. Opinions that don't agree with you don't distract you. You're rooted in truth, you're grounded in grace, you're anchored in identity. And when you know who you are, you become dangerous to the enemy because he can't manipulate someone who knows they're already seated in heavenly places. He can't intimidate someone who knows their identity is not up for negotiation. You don't have to apologize for being chosen. You don't have to water yourself down to make others feel comfortable. When God put purpose in you, he didn't consult anyone else's opinion. He called you before anyone else confirmed you. He appointed you before anyone approved you. And his call is still on your life, even in the delay, even in the detour, even in the valley. You are still called, still anointed, still set apart. So stop letting the silence make you question the sound of his voice. Stop letting the delay make you question the promise. Sometimes the delay is less about what God is doing outside of you and more about what he's doing inside of you. It's a divine pause, a sacred preparation, because he loves you too much to let the blessing outpace your maturity. He knows that a crown given too soon can crush a head not ready to carry it. So he works in the unseen places. He strengthens your identity. He deepens your trust. He heals your wounds. He removes the fear of man. And then when you're ready, he releases you into the promise, not just with favor, but with foundation. Don't rush the process. Don't resent the wait. God is not finished. He's still writing, still shaping, still aligning. You're not behind. You're not late. You're not forgotten. You're being developed. And the kind of development God does is lasting. It's deep. It's thorough. He's not just preparing the blessing for you, He's preparing you for the blessing. So keep showing up. Keep saying yes. Keep believing. Keep praising in the hallway, even when the door is still closed. Because the same God who called you is faithful to complete it. And when it happens, when the delay lifts and the promise arrives, you won't just step into it, you'll be ready for it. Secure in who you are, strong in your identity, and thankful for the process that made you who you've become. There comes a time in your life when you have to stop apologizing for who you are, for what God placed in you, and for the calling He's put on your life. Too many people walk around trying to shrink themselves to fit into spaces that were never designed to contain their full purpose. You were never meant to be small. You were never meant to blend in. You were called to stand out, to shift atmospheres, to transform the room, not be transformed by it. But when you don't know who you are, what you carry, you'll find yourself adjusting to people who were never meant to shape your identity. You'll lower your voice so others feel comfortable. You'll minimize your dreams so no one thinks you're being too much. But what if too much is exactly what the assignment requires? What if the environment isn't changing because you keep trying to fit in instead of standing up? You weren't created to be a mirror. You were created to be a light. You don't need to reflect what everyone else is doing. You're designed to shine, to lead, to bring something different. And that different isn't a liability, it's your assignment. God doesn't need copies. He's not calling you to conform. He's calling you to transform. That's why you felt tension. That's why certain rooms made you uncomfortable. That's why some circles couldn't hold your voice. It's not because you were out of place. It's because the place was too small. It's not your job to shrink. It's your job to steward what's been placed inside you. When you step into environments and you carry peace, you carry wisdom, you carry grace, you shift the atmosphere whether you realize it or not. But the enemy wants you to forget that. He wants you to second guess your voice, your gifts, your uniqueness. He wants you to keep believing that what you have isn't enough, that you're not ready, that someone else is better suited, so you stay quiet when you're supposed to speak. You stay seated when you're supposed to stand. You hold back when you're called to pour out. But what if what you think disqualifies you is the very thing God wants to use? You don't need to become something you're not. You just need to stop hiding what you already are. You don't have to wait for another degree, another title, another confirmation. You are already equipped. The problem is not that God hasn't given it, it's that you haven't recognized it. Sometimes you're looking for something new when God has already placed it within you. You keep asking for more when what you really need is to use what you've already been given. David didn't defeat Goliath with Saul's armor. He defeated him with the slingshot he had already mastered. Moses didn't part the sea with new tools. He used the staff that was already in his hand. What's in your hand? What has God already given you that you've overlooked? Too often we disqualify ourselves because we think power comes from somewhere out there. But the power is already within. You've been praying for boldness. It's already in you. You've been asking for clarity. It's already available. You've been waiting for strength. It's already there. You just haven't used it yet. It's not that you're not ready, it's that you haven't realized how ready you are. Sometimes the confidence comes after you take the first step. You're waiting to feel courageous before you act, but courage is not the absence of fear, it's moving forward in spite of it. When God places a calling on your life, He backs it with provision. He gives you everything you need to fulfill the purpose He's assigned to you. But you've got to activate it. You've got to stir it up. You've got to speak when it feels uncomfortable, walk when it feels uncertain, move when you're not sure where the road ends. Your obedience is the key that unlocks what's already inside of you. And the more you step out, the more you'll see that you were never lacking, you were just underutilized. The danger in shrinking is that it not only stifles your purpose, it also robs others of the transformation they were meant to experience through your obedience. Someone needs what's inside of you. Someone is waiting on your yes. But if you keep hiding, if you keep waiting until you feel perfect, you'll delay the very impact you were created to make. The room doesn't need a version of you that's watered down. It needs the real you, the full you, the unashamed, bold, spirit-filled you, the you that doesn't change based on the opinions in the room, the you that remembers, I don't come in my own strength. I come with everything God has given me. You don't have to look the part to be the one. You don't have to have a platform to have power. You don't need the spotlight to walk in significance. If you'll be faithful with what's in your hands, God will elevate you in ways you never imagined. If you'll stop trying to fit and start choosing to stand, you'll see doors open that were never available when you were blending in. Favor finds the authentic. Anointing flows through obedience, not performance. When you step into who you really are, things begin to shift. Chains break, walls fall, atmospheres change. But it only happens when you stop hiding the fullness of who God made you to be. You've been overthinking it. You've been talking yourself out of it. You've been playing small, but there's a roar inside you. There's fire in your bones. There's strategy in your spirit. You don't need to ask for another sign. The time is now. The space you're walking into is not too big for you. It was made for you. You were sent to take up space, not take up silence. You're not a background character in someone else's story. You are the solution someone is praying for. And every room you walk into, you bring something of value. You bring presence. You bring peace. You bring perspective. You bring authority, not because of who you are, but because of whose you are. Start speaking like you believe it. Start walking like you know it. Stop second guessing and start stepping. Start replaying the old failures and start rehearsing the promise. You are not who you were. You are not the insecure, unsure, hiding version of yourself. You are bold. You are empowered. You are chosen. You are called to shift the very culture around you, not by force, not by striving, but by being fully who you are. That's what changes things. That's what opens doors. That's what activates the equipping God placed inside of you before you ever took your first breath. You might say, but I've never seen anyone do it. Like me. That's the point. You're a blueprint, not a copy. You're the first in your family to break that cycle. You're the first to walk through that door. You're the first to carry that mantle. And because you haven't seen it modeled doesn't mean you're not made for it. It just means you've been called to lead it. You're not behind, you're not late. You're not too young, too old, too inexperienced. You're right on time for the thing God has been preparing you for. And everything you've been through, every valley, every delay, every setback, it's all been a setup for you to stop shrinking and start stepping fully into who you were always created to be. You've been praying for elevation, but elevation requires expansion. You can't rise while remaining small on the inside. That fear has to go. That doubt has to go. That need for approval has to go. There's a version of you that's been waiting to be released. The version that's confident, the version that's free, the version that trusts what God placed in them even when others don't see it yet. You don't need external validation when you've got internal confirmation. And the confirmation is this: you're already equipped. You already carry what you need. You've been prepared, shaped, refined, and appointed for such a time as this. When you stop shrinking, you give others permission to rise. When you operate from your equipping instead of your insecurity, you become the evidence of what's possible. When someone says yes to God, your yes matters. Your voice matters. Your obedience matters. This world doesn't need more people who play it safe. It needs people who know what they carry and aren't afraid to use it. It needs people who stop negotiating their purpose just to keep the peace. It needs people who remember that the goal is not comfort, it's calling. So the next time you're tempted to sit down when you should be standing up, remind yourself, I was called to this. I was built for this. I carry something the room needs. I don't have to be loud to be powerful. I don't have to be perfect to be effective. I just need to be obedient. And when I show up fully, when I stop hiding, when I use what God gave me, the room changes. Because I'm not just present, I'm positioned. I'm not just attending, I'm activating. I'm not just existing, I'm equipping others by living out what's already been placed inside me. It's a powerful thing to know your worth, to stand in your identity, and to realize that your value doesn't shift just because someone else couldn't recognize it. You may not have been their favorite. You may have been overlooked, underestimated, or even walked away from. But their opinion didn't shape your worth, and their rejection didn't cancel your calling. The truth is, you've always been valuable. Not because someone clapped for you, not because they chose you, but because God did. When you understand this, you stop chasing validation and start walking in confidence. You stop trying to earn what you already have, and you stop shrinking just because someone didn't applaud. Some people can't see your value because their vision is limited. They're looking through the lens of their insecurity, their expectations, their bias. They can't perceive the greatness in you because it doesn't come packaged in a way they're familiar with. But just because they couldn't see it doesn't mean it isn't there. A diamond doesn't lose its worth because someone mistook it for glass. It's still rare. It's still precious. It's still priceless. And you are too. Your value was set long before anyone ever had an opinion about you. You were called, chosen, handcrafted for a purpose. And no amount of rejection, silence, or dismissal can take that away. You may have been left out. They may have bypassed your name. You might not have been invited to the table. But here's the good news. You don't need their table when God is building you your own. You don't need their spotlight when God has already lit your path. You don't need their platform when the purpose over your life is what opens doors. You were not created to be everyone's cup of tea. You weren't designed to fit in every room. Some places had to close so your heart could open. Some people had to walk away so your eyes could finally see who you really are. Rejection is not always a loss. It's often a revelation. It shows you who's for you. It reveals what no longer fits. And it teaches you that even when others walk, you still stand. They might have looked past you, but heaven never did. People might have ignored your gifts, but that doesn't mean they weren't real. You were given something unique, a voice, a vision, a grace that's specific to you. And just because someone didn't recognize it doesn't mean it's not there. Sometimes your light is too bright for people who are still hiding in the dark. Sometimes your growth makes others uncomfortable. Sometimes your confidence sounds like arrogance to those still wrestling with insecurity. But you can't let their struggle become your story. You can't let the rejection define your reflection. Your worth is not up for debate. It's already been settled. What you carry is not based on popular opinion. It's based on divine decision. You were chosen before the foundations of the world, chosen when you had nothing to offer, chosen before you even believed in yourself. And that choosing hasn't changed. People might walk in and out of your life, but the one who chose you has never left. He saw you at your lowest and still said, that one's mine. He saw your flaws and still said, I can use them. He saw your failures and still called you worthy. So the next time someone walks away, the next time someone rejects you, let it remind you, your identity was never in their hands. Their absence doesn't diminish your assignment. Their silence doesn't cancel your significance. There's something freeing about knowing you don't have to convince anyone of your value. You don't have to perform. You don't have to beg. You don't have to fight for a seat at the wrong table. When you know who you are, you stop trying to audition for people who were never meant to be your audience. You start focusing on purpose over popularity. You start walking in rooms like you belong there, because you do, even if they don't acknowledge you, even if they act like they don't see you, even if they whisper behind your back. You know what's true? You're already enough, already equipped, already approved by the one who matters most. Sometimes being rejected is actually a sign you're on the right path, because the truth is, not everyone can handle where you're going. Not everyone is meant to come with you, and not everyone has the capacity to celebrate what they didn't help create. You'll discover that the ones who reject you often can't see the full version of you. They're looking at who you were. They're judging your past, not your potential. But you're evolving, you're growing, you're becoming something greater. So don't let people who are stuck in an old version of you keep you from walking in the new thing God is doing. Their no doesn't stop your next. You were never called to seek their approval. You were called to walk in your anointing. And that anointing is not up for negotiation. It doesn't come and go based on who supports you. You were chosen for this. You were made for this. And sometimes the rejection is what pushes you into the right position. It's what forces you to dig deeper. It's what trains your heart to trust. It's what teaches you to lean not on what you see, but on what you know. And what you know is this: your value is intact. Your worth hasn't decreased. You're still called, still chosen, still powerful. Even if they never come back to say they were wrong, even if they never apologize, even if they keep pretending like you don't exist, you don't need their apology to move forward. You don't need their validation to take your next step. The promise on your life is not tied to their opinion. The oil on your life still flows. The gift is still active. The grace is still working. You're still favored, even if they couldn't see it. And one day they might look back and realize what they missed. But that's not your concern. Your focus isn't on who left. It's on who stayed, on who called you, on where you're going. Stop waiting for closure and start walking in confidence. Stop looking back at what didn't work and start thanking God for what He's working now. You're not forgotten. You're not less than. You're not invisible. You are seen. You are loved. You are chosen. You may have felt like the underdog. You may have walked through seasons where it seemed like nobody saw your effort. Nobody noticed your loyalty. Nobody appreciated your consistency. But heaven saw it all. And heaven rewards in ways no man can block. You're not overlooked. You're being prepared. You're not behind. You're being developed. And when the moment comes, you won't have to force your way in. The door will swing wide open. And the ones who tried to bury you will have no choice but to witness your rise. You don't have to prove yourself to people who never saw your worth in the first place. You don't need to explain yourself to those who made up their minds before you even spoke. You weren't made to chase approval. You're made to carry purpose. And when you focus on that purpose, when you keep your eyes on the mission, the distractions lose their power, the noise fades, the opinions quiet down. And you remember, you're not here by accident. You were handpicked, set apart, marked by God Himself, and what He's called you to, no rejection can remove. You're still chosen, even if they didn't pick you. You're still worthy, even if they ignored you. You're still valuable, even if they tried to devalue you. They didn't create you. They can't define you. They didn't bless you. They can't block you. You're chosen by the one who never changes His mind. And even if others walked away, even if they forgot your name, even if they shut the door, you're still in the story. You're still part of the plan. You still have a seat at the table that truly matters. Lift your head. Walk like you know who you are. Speak like someone who carries weight. Move like someone who knows they've been called for more. You don't have to settle. You don't have to shrink. You don't have to chase. Your value doesn't go up and down based on who's watching. You're not stock on a market. You're a masterpiece in motion. The rejection was real, but so is your redemption. The dismissal was painful, but so is your destiny. You're not defined by what they did. You're defined by what He declared. And He declared you chosen. He declared you victorious. He declared you more than enough. Rejection doesn't mean you're disqualified. It often means you're being redirected. And sometimes the redirection is the greatest gift you didn't know you needed. It forces you to anchor in truth. It reminds you of your true source. It teaches you not to build on the shaky foundation of people's praise, but on the unshakable truth of God's word over your life. That's where your identity lies. Not in the hands of people who are inconsistent, but in the hands of the one who never fails. Next time you feel the sting of rejection, let it remind you of your value, not because of how others treated you, but in spite of it. Let it be a sign that you're still chosen, still called, still carrying something that eyes haven't seen and ears haven't heard. You're not forgotten, you're not finished, and you're not diminished. You are walking proof that rejection can't stop purpose, and that value is not dictated by the crowd, it's confirmed by the Creator.